I spent the last few days panicking with friends in Russia about the possibility that Mr. Putin is going to do something really dramatic tomorrow. There are a few options. Number one, he can go for full mobilization. Number two, he can close all the borders. Number three, he can declare war on Ukraine. Of the three, I think the third is the most likely. And what is this going to do? In one sense, it's not going to change anything. The people that I've been speaking to, of course, tell me horror stories from the Kremlin about Mr. Putin using a nuclear bomb in Ukraine, whether a tactical nuclear bomb or something bigger, to terrify and suppress, intimidate the West and Ukraine. Maybe making a big splash in the north of the Black Sea. But that will automatically have an effect on Turkey, and Putin doesn't want to upset Turkey. Putin's got a good enough relationship with Turkey. It's perhaps the one relationship outside Russia that he can, in part, depend on. It's not uncritical. As indeed, the Chinese relationship is not uncritical, and I think Putin is disappointed with that. Putin expected more support. But I think should Putin go down the nuclear route, he's going to lose even that support. So it's a gamble tomorrow. And I think it's more likely to be rhetoric, and it will be accompanied by a formal declaration of the incorporation of the 4 states, Zaporizhia, Kherson, Donetsk and Luhansk, into Russia. Now, of course, it is absurd, this plebiscite. Let's be in no doubt at all about it. Although Russia has pretty well conquered Luhansk, it's only acquired about 2/3 of Zaporizhia and barely half of Donetsk. So even for Russia to be claiming that at its worst there's an 87% victory for union with Russia, the greatest victory of course is 99%, it's absurd. It's absurd because Russia doesn't command all the territory. And we know that Russian troops have been going door to door with guns, and Ukrainians, those Ukrainians that are left that hadn't already fled, have been pressurized into voting, of course, for union. This is reminiscent of the plebiscites that took place in Germany, where people again were held at gunpoint and told to vote, where people in concentration camps voted enthusiastically for the Nazi Party. It's just meaningless. It's meaningless in that sense, in that sort of democratic sense, but it's not meaningless in the way it has purpose. And its purpose is to establish a legal precedent. And Putin has played this game quite well, in a sense. He's moved his chess pieces around. He likes to think of himself as a chess master. I like to think that he can barely assemble the pieces on the board. But about a year ago, he enacted a law which made it illegal for Russia under any circumstances to give away any territory, any Russian territory. Russian territory is sacred and cannot be squandered or given away in any treaty. So any sort of peace arrangement that takes place after tomorrow between Russia and Ukraine, under the Russian law, cannot cede any of the territory of these 4 states. And that's significant, because actually some of those states still automatically belong to Ukraine. So legally, this is the next point, legally Russia has claimed that it would only use nuclear weapons or serious weaponry, serious missiles, if its own sovereign territory was threatened. Well, once it proclaims these four states part of Russian territory along with Crimea, then any invasion of those states, in fact, any activity in the states where Ukraine is actually still in control, that's of course in the north of Donetsk, and in fact in the north of Zaporizhia, in fact in any of these states except for Luhansk, which Ukraine is now threatening from the north, Russia would see those threats as being an invasion of its own territory, which is absurd. What has Russia done so far? Well, it's restricted travel. It sent the FSB to the border to make sure that people, men from the age of 18 to 35 particularly, are restrained. They, of course, are bound for military duty. But actually, the military conscription age would go up to 60 and probably beyond. Russia can draw, therefore, on 25 million military-age men as cannon fodder. Because, of course, it can't train them all. Many of these have never really had proper training, even if they've done a 1-year military conscription. It's out of date, and there wouldn't be time to train them in modern military methods. More than that, of course, the equipment hasn't been kept up to date. The equipment hasn't been repaired, as we saw with the tanks, which were just pooping out on the highway, on the motorways, on the main roads into Kyiv. Just stopping because they haven't been properly upkept. So there's all that. There's also the possibility that tomorrow all Putin wants to do is distract from the Ukrainian victories. Of course, he's actually managed that very well. We haven't heard a word about Ukrainian victories in the last week, have we? All we've heard is anxiety about Putin's threats. That's exactly what he wants. But Ukrainians have made further advances into Russian-held territory. And what about this missile threat? What I've heard is that from Friday onwards, Putin intends to rain down a hail of missiles on strategic areas across Ukraine. That may well be the case. Ukraine needs to brace itself for a terrifying ordeal. I don't think it's likely to break the Ukrainian spirit. And I don't think a tactical nuclear missile is likely to break the Ukrainian spirit. I think that's more likely to fracture Mr. Putin's relationship with China and with Turkey. If Mr. Putin wants to be an international pariah in every sense of that meaning, then he is going in exactly the right direction. But I'm afraid when I look at Mr. Putin, I see the same sort of defiance and stubborn stupidity that I also see in Liz Truss, for different reasons. Mr. Putin has no escape. Mr. Putin is surrounded by people who are themselves terrified and who see strength as their only option. Liz Truss is surrounded by an innumerable number of people who want her job. I don't think there's so many people in Russia who want Mr. Putin's job. That is the difference. But otherwise, we're looking at two stupid, stubborn individuals. And a very wise man, actually from Albania, said to me a long time ago that he would rather deal with an evil person than with a stupid person. At least an evil, bad person, you know exactly what they're going to do. With a stupid person, you have no idea what their next move is going to be. And Mr. Putin is very much in that category, as of course is Liz Truss. So I am very much aware of my trolls who will tell me, oh, well, you've got problems in Britain. Yes, we have. Let me get there first. Yes, we have. We've got a Prime Minister who is completely loopy. But you, in Russia have got a president who is equally loopy and stupid, and he's running out of options, and that is not good for anybody.